Hello, this is Riding with Ree. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. For this week's video, I thought that we would do something a little bit different. I've had a lot of questions over the years about full livery. I've always kept my horses on full livery, and so I thought it would be nice to gather all of your questions and then talk a little bit about full livery in general, what's included, things that you can and can't do and everything like that. And then to talk about my yard in particular, how I chose it, what I was looking for, the day-to-day, and then I think I had some questions around like what comes first, the stable or the horse. So I've got my notes on my phone and I'm wrapped up. It is so cold today. I mean, I say so cold, I know some of you are in very cold climates, but it's about 2 degrees in the UK today and it's pretty cold, so I've got my ratty mittens on. We've been for a nice hack, which maybe I can tell you about another time. We had a canter in an open field today. It was very exciting. It was my first one on Harley and he was very good. So I didn't wear my GoPro. Sod's law. But anyway, back to full livery. Let's get into this. So the first question I had was just what is full livery and how does it differ from other livery types? So if I have any Americans watching, full livery is the equivalent word for board. So livery is just the cost that you pay to rent whatever it is that your horse is living in, stable, field, whatever. So we have grass livery where a horse lives out in a field full time. There's DIY livery where the owners come and do all of the chores themselves and all that they're paying for is the stable, the field, the electric, the water. And then it kind of goes up from there. So you have assisted DIY where you might pay for the horse to be turned out or brought in every day and you do the rest yourself, and then you get up to full livery. And there's a bit of a debate in the equestrian space about what constitutes full livery versus part livery. So some people would say that what I had with Woody was actually part livery. So what I had with Woody was all of the care was taken care by the team that work at the yard. So the mucking out, rugging up, turning out, bringing in, feeding, watering, everything was done by the team at the yard and everything was paid for in that. So the feed, the bedding, all of the care was taken care of, and then I did all of the riding. So for some people that would be considered part livery because the riding was not done by the yard, and for others that would be considered full livery. What I have with Harley is kind of one step up. So because Harley is 5, and because my coach is much more experienced than I am, she's helping me to continue producing him, and so she rides him once a week and then I ride him the rest of the time, and I have what we call at this yard a coaching package. So I have 1 lesson a week with her, she rides him once a week, and then the rest of the time I do all the riding and the team here do all of the care. Is that clear? Clear as mud. There's one more step up from that, or there's several steps in different ways, but one of the most obvious steps up from full livery is competition livery. So I don't know the ins and outs of it because I've never done it myself, but I know that it sort of constitutes maybe the yard riding that horse, taking them out, competing them for you, etc. All of the competition prep, things like that. So that is the kind of what full livery entails. The cost for full livery in the UK really vary depending on where you are, what facilities are available, how big the yard is, etc, etc. I would say that in the UK right now, you would be hard pressed to find full livery that is under £650 to £700, and then it goes up to above £1,000 depending on what the package is. I don't believe I've ever seen a full livery that sits below that. There is 5-day livery where full care happens 5 days a week, and then on the weekend the owners do the chores themselves, and that's slightly cheaper, but it really depends where you are in the market. If I have any Equestrian Money Diaries, perhaps I can put some of them in the comments for you if I've seen any other prices for full livery, so I'll share them in the description. One of the things that I got asked was what's actually included, not in terms of day-to-day, but in terms of vet visits and farrier visits. So I think it depends on the yard that you're on. For my yard in particular, vet visits and farrier visits are included in the full livery. So my coach, who also runs the yard, will actually manage all of the farriery and the vet visits if I want her to. I can be there if I want to, I can manage it if I want to. If I want a different farrier or a different vet, I can do that, but otherwise she will manage it for me, which is useful because a lot of the people that have their horses here, like me, have careers in London or need to go into the office every day, and so it makes it easier for them to manage those appointments as well. Who makes decisions on the day-to-day was a question I got as well. So who makes decisions on like what they're fed, what they're rugged, etc. I would say this depends on the owner. For me, I'm an owner, I'm sort of relatively experienced, but I'm not really, really experienced. I only got my first horse a couple of years ago, and I'm now on my second horse, but really it's only been a few years. So I will often take the steer of my coach when it comes to feeding, or we'll often have a conversation about it and make a decision. I'll take expert advice. When it comes to rugging, I can decide, I can tell the girls, you know, or the people that work on the yard, oh, I'd really like him to wear this rug tonight, or I can ask my coach to decide. And if I'm not here, I know that the people who work at the yard will make that decision with the horse's interests in mind, knowing how hot or cold the horse is. I really trust the team here to make decisions when it comes to little things like that. One of the other questions I got was, can you change packages partway through the year? So I think this was referring to, you know, if you can suddenly put the horse out 24/7 in the summer, does the package change? That doesn't happen at this yard. Sometimes we flip the horses round so that they go out all night in the summer and come in during the day in the summer, and then in the winter they switch it around. Harley's actually still out at night, which he loves, and it works for us. Our package doesn't change. I think it probably balances itself out in the year, but I think it would depend on the yard you were at, whether or not that would be, you'd be able to flex the package. There are some yards where it's all full livery, like everyone's on the same package. Like this yard is a little bit like that, like everyone's on full care, and then it's up to you how much kind of coaching or riding you want to add on top. But there are other yards where it's a mix of like DIY, part livery, full livery. So I guess in those circumstances, you'd be able to switch packages possibly throughout the year if you wanted to. Someone asked if there was flexibility in the day-to-day, like if I woke up one day and really wanted to go and do the chores, could I do that? Not really. I mean, I'm sure you really could if you asked, but having been a groom myself, on a full livery yard, I would find it a little bit unhelpful when owners would come and want to do their own thing, because they often don't know the systems, like where the tools are, like how we do things. They would take like twice as long, they'd leave a mess. Like I just found it a little bit unhelpful to my work, and so I try as a full livery to not do that and not get in their way while they're trying to do their job. But yeah, I definitely miss the chores sometimes. I used to find it really satisfying to do like the mucking out and the waters and the sweeping. I don't know if you've seen any of my old routines with my share horse. I used to really enjoy doing all of those things in the morning, but you know, ultimately this is the way that I can have a horse the way that I want, with the standard of care that I want, and being able to spend the time grooming and hanging out with him and riding, so it works for me. What happens if the owner is away and an injury happens? So often with in fact you should, if you're at a full livery yard, have a contract in place, and that contract will often have a clause in it which says that in an emergency situation you give permission for the yard owner to make decisions on your behalf, and what decisions you choose for them to be able to make is up to you. But often if your horse is on full livery, technically you're not the primary carer, and so you have to give permission for the yard owner to be able to make big decisions on your behalf. Now, in practice, in real life, I know that if anything ever happened, I would get a phone call straight away. I'd be able to talk to my yard owner straight away about what decisions were going to be made there and then. But I think it's important that if you are giving over primary care to another person, that they have the freedom to make decisions in the best interest of your horse as well. I don't think I've ever seen situations where it's had to be done in a really awful way, and I think I know what you know what I'm talking about, but I can totally see why you would have to do that if you chose to have your horse on full livery. So I'm going to move on now to talk about full livery for me, why I chose it, and a little bit about my day-to-day. So as I said, I've always had the horses that I've bought on full livery. The share horses I've had in the past have been on DIY, but with my career at the moment, I spend, even after the pandemic, I go into the office a few days a week. It's often a little bit, I never quite know what hours I'll end up doing. Some days are really long, other days are more flexible. Sometimes I have to go abroad for work, I have to work weekends. And so I kind of sat down and did all the maths and was like, it's just not worth the hassle, the stress, I guess, of having to constantly Tetris my schedule. I wanted my horse to be able to like have a routine which was the same for them every single day. I always joke that like the reason I need full livery is because of my career, but the reason I can afford it is because of my career. I can definitely see a world in the future when I'm a bit older, maybe I have a slightly different career, maybe when I'm retired, where I would have them on DIY, or maybe even at home if I was lucky enough to do that. But at the moment this works for me. The other side that I really enjoy about this full livery yard is the fact that I have coaching. and I have the support of my yard owner. So I've talked about this before, but being a first-time horse owner was really daunting the first time round. And even though I'd ridden since I was a child and I'd been around horses my whole life, I'd never owned a horse. And so Full Livery offered me a really strong support system in terms of my horse's welfare and care. So I always had someone to kind of catch me that I could ask questions of. And what's nice about this yard too is all the coaching. So I have a weekly lesson, so I feel like I'm constantly improving. And I have a lot of lovely liveries who are really like-minded. We're working towards similar goals. We ride at similar levels. And that's a really nice thing that you don't always find on a DIY yard, for example. How did I pick my yard? So what I did, I'm such a stalker, before I decided to come here, I would come up with my share horse for lessons, and actually that's how I first tested it out. I came up for a lesson to see what if I vibed with the coach, and I came up a few times for like clear rounds and competitions, and every time that I came up here I just kind of looked around. I looked at what the vibe was it calm, was it chaotic, was it tidy, was it messy, what were the people interacting with the horses like, were they gentle, were they kind, were they appropriate, were they respectful, and I just kept an eye on it every time I came up. And then when I felt comfortable about what I was seeing, it felt like the right kind of space for me, I reached out for a tour, had a look around with the owner, we kind of went back and forth, got a rapport, I got the budget, and then of course I did all of my budget calculations. But for me it was being able to visit a few times, and I know that you can't always do that, but if your livery yard that you're looking at going to is one that has clinics or competitions or lessons, it could be worth going and just being there as a customer, not saying anything about stables, and just getting a sense of what the vibe is. The final question I'm going to answer is, what came first, the horse or the stable? This is a question that I get asked a lot, and it's a really hard one to answer. So this question is basically, when you know that you want to buy a horse, do you secure the stable before you secure the horse? Now, the answer is not super black and white, but in essence, I don't think you should get a stable before you have a horse ready, for a couple of reasons. One, financially, that's a big outlay for you and it can take months to find the right horse. And two, psychologically, I think it can give you pressure to like choose a horse that you maybe wouldn't have chosen because you know that you're paying for a stable in the back of your head. It's the same reason that like I wouldn't turn up to a vetting with a horse box, because I feel like then you've already made the decision even though you haven't done the vetting yet. So what I would recommend doing, however, is looking in your local area, figuring out what kind of livery you need, what you can afford, what your budget is, etc., etc., and then having a couple kind of on your list and saying to them, like reaching out, doing a bit of an inquiry, figuring out if they've got boxes or not, and finding out how many stables they have free, because if it's like one, you might want to keep an eye on them and have a second choice. If they've got like 4 or 5 boxes free, then I would say it's unlikely that they would become full by the time you find a horse. I think it's always important to have a couple on your list so that if your first choice is full, you can move a horse somewhere, and then if you really, really want to go to that original yard in a few months' time, you can move the horse again. Obviously, I know there are going to be people who say the horse will be settled, it's not good to unsettle them, you should leave them where they are, but I think for the long term, if you're planning on being at the original yard for a really long time, then I think that short period of unrest for the horse is probably worth it. I hope that answered most of your questions. If you have any more, let me know in the comments. I think I'm going to be doing a vlog for next week's video, but if there's anything else that you want to see, let me know. And what else was I going to tell you? If you haven't signed up yet and you're watching this before the 17th of January 2024, I'm doing a webinar series with World Horse Welfare. I'll be alongside this Esme and Gemma Owen, and we'll be talking about being content creators, horse welfare, putting that at the forefront of our content creation, and answering your other questions. I'll put a link if you want to sign up to the Zoom in the comments. It's going to be 17th of January at 7 p.m. UK time. All right, that's it for now. I will see you soon. Bye bye.